What does it take to stand up when the world expects you to shrink? For me, it was one dinner, one sentence, and one moment that changed everything. The dining room glowed under the chandelier's soft light, but the air was heavy, thick with unspoken judgments. I sat at the long mahogany table, surrounded by faces I'd known for years, friends, colleagues, and her. Vanessa, the woman who always carried herself like she owned the room, her smile sharp as a blade, her words sharper. She was my boss, my mentor once, but tonight, she was something else entirely, a predator circling for a kill. I'd been invited to this dinner to celebrate the team's latest project, a campaign I'd poured my soul into. Months of late nights, endless revisions, and quiet sacrifices had led to its success. But as the wine flowed and laughter filled the room, Vanessa's gaze kept finding me, cold and calculating. I felt it like a weight, pressing harder with every passing minute. The conversation turned to the project, and I allowed myself a moment of pride. My ideas had shaped it, my persistence had carried it through. But then Vanessa leaned forward, her voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. "You know," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "it's amazing how some people can take credit for work they barely touched. Isn't that right, Clara?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. My heart pounded, but not from fear, from rage. She was rewriting history, painting me as a fraud in front of everyone I respected. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the urge to shrink, to let her words slide over me like I always had. But something snapped. I was done being her punching bag. I looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes glittered with triumph, expecting me to crumble. Instead, I smiled a small, steady smile that made her falter for a fraction of a second. "Vanessa," I said, my voice calm but firm, "if I took credit for anything, it was only for cleaning up the mess you left when you abandoned the project to save your own reputation." The silence deepened, sharp and electric. Her face froze, the smugness draining away. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The truth hung in the air, undeniable. Everyone knew she'd stepped back when the project seemed doomed, leaving me to salvage it. I'd never called her out before, not in meetings, not in private. But tonight, I'd had enough. The others shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between us. Vanessa laughed, a brittle sound, trying to brush it off. "Oh, Clara, always so dramatic," she said, but her voice trembled. She reached for her wine glass, her hand unsteady. I didn't need to say more. That one sentence had stripped her bare, exposing the truth she'd hidden behind her charm and authority. The dinner continued, but the dynamic had shifted. People spoke to me differently now, warmer, more genuine. Vanessa's laughter grew forced, her presence smaller. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I'd reclaimed something she'd tried to steal, my voice. Later, as we cleared the table, my friend Sarah pulled me aside. "I can't believe you said that," she whispered, her eyes wide. "How did you find the courage?" I didn't have an answer then, but I've thought about it since. It wasn't just about that moment or her words. It was about every time I'd let someone diminish me, every time I'd stayed silent to keep the peace. That night, I realized silence wasn't peace, it was surrender. Vanessa never apologized, but she never targeted me again either. The project's success became my victory, not hers. I started speaking up in meetings, trusting my ideas, owning my worth. The team noticed. Opportunities opened. I wasn't just Clara, the quiet worker, anymore. I was Clara, the woman who stood her ground. Looking back, I see that moment for what it was, a turning point. Not because I humiliated Vanessa, she did that to herself, but because I chose myself. I chose truth over fear, dignity over silence. Life doesn't hand you courage. You build it, one small act at a time. For me, it started with one sentence, one look, one night when I refused to be shamed. And so, I ask you again, what does it take to stand up? Sometimes, it's just a single moment when you decide enough is enough. For me, it was that dinner, that sentence, that look in her eyes when she realized I wasn't backing down. It was the moment I became more than the person she tried to define. It was the moment I became me.